What's up, everybody? Thralls here once again. I'm Necrotic Nick, and I have an album review for you. So another one that I pretty much had on my radar just because I heard a track by them, and honestly I really wasn't familiar with this band, but decided to give them a chance because it comes out on a label I like, and it sounded pretty cool. Was the newest offering from Tithe, Inverse Rapture. And a title like that would probably bum out all the doomsday fucking Rapture junkies out there. We do still have a fair amount of them in the country, and man, did they get fucking annoying. Anyway, this also comes out on the 17th of February on Profound Lore Records. This band formed in 2017 in Portland, Oregon, home to a ton of just sick fucking bands. Add one more to the list, I guess. This is their second full length overall. They also have one EP, and at least going into this, like going into the archives, I generally kind of go by that to see what they're described as, and this was described as both death metal, doom metal, and grind. And I was like, all right, that's an interesting blend. But that really isn't the whole of it. Honestly, there's a lot more to it than just that, and that's already a lot. I know this band actually features the drummer from Lord Dying, which is a fucking awesome sludge band. I think their last album kind of changed around their sound a little bit, but those first two are the ones that I really got into. But I was really fascinated by the themes of this band because, you think death metal and doom metal and grind, like you think violence and gore and just anger and shit, and honestly this is mostly about mental illness, psychedelics, and the human condition. And I was kind of thrown for a loop by that too, but listen to the album, it kind of makes sense. This album is a very cathartic, dark listen. There's so much dismal atmosphere and dissonance on here that I wish Jammin' John was here reviewing it with me, because I'm reasonably sure he would say fucking dissonance like every 5 seconds. He would meet his quota possibly for the next 3 months on that word on this review alone. So I'm probably going to say it a lot too, to be honest, because that is definitely an accurate descriptor. The opening track, Anthropogenic Annihilation, opens up with these doomy, distant riffs, and this is the thing about this album in terms of its transitions and shifts. It shifts abruptly to these styles that I've listed, doom metal, death metal, and grindcore often, and man, the transitions can be fucking knee-jerk, like fucking jerking the wheel to make a fucking hard turn on the fucking freeway and just watching everyone behind you just lose their shit and flick you off. The song opens with disgusting, bending, sludgy riffs. They're very, again, distant and ugly. It's slow and lumbering, and then this just breaks out into a grindcore / death grind shit fit. The riffs become more just hostile and angry, and then it kind of just bounces back and forth between these two styles, and that happens a lot on this album. And that is definitely a thing on this album. This album is definitely about extreme shifts, but it's also very interesting in terms of the atmosphere and the whole vibe of it. It doesn't come across as like an outwardly hostile album all the time. A lot of it is very cathartic, and I think that has a lot to do with the themes. Like, this is very reflective at times, very somber, very dismal. Especially when you get down to the longest track in here, Killing Tree, which is appropriately just very depressive. It's like a long bout of depression, except with blast beats. There are lumbering slow sections, distant riffs once again, and this is why I said there was more to it, because not only are there death metal moments, grindcore moments, and doom metal moments, there is also elements of sludge. I would say black metal. Black metal, actually, I would say is all over this. All the tremolo riffs on here, for the most part, sound very cold and very blackened. Some of the melodies seem more akin to just Norwegian black metal, except played through a sludge metal or death grind filter. And this song, Killing Tree, is one of the best examples of it, because it has this slow lumbering start. You feel like you're being set up for a long, slow death doom song, and then it just kind of shifts into blast beats, cold tremolo riffs. They're very melodic, they're very fucking depressive, and then you have the vocals on top of them, which the vocals on here are very unlike what I was expecting. A lot of the vocals are very dry and throaty, but they're not screamed like black metal. They're not like a fucking death metal belch or burp or roar. They're more like yells, and they're very anguished, and there's alternating thing between highs and lows, but the lows aren't particularly low, and the highs are just, I don't know, just agonizing screams. Honestly, a lot of the vocal dynamics in here reminded me a lot of Neurosis, Steve Von Till and Scott Kelly sort of playing off of each other, both delivering their different but still agonized screams. And it creates sort of this interesting atmosphere in here where it's very depressive, very sullen, but it's also very murky, and these hard shifts to more aggressive sections can be so fucking jarring, but really interesting. Like the song Luciferian Pathways of the Forked Tongue. It's a fucking mouthful there. That song has some of the most brutal moments on this entire album. Like, they go full bore into the death metal mode. Like, there's more death metal tremolos, like more akin to like Incantation or Morbid Angel. But you also have like some brutal chugging on there. And honestly, it's the heaviest moment on there and probably like the least atmospheric. Like, it dials up more brutality in this section. And I don't know, like this whole like weird ebb and flow and switching of styles, it can be very jarring, but it is very interesting to see these very different genres sort of mix and mesh, because there's really cool transitions that I think are very clever on here. This band does a lot of a thing that I like with like slow riffs on top of blast beats, but there are moments where it starts off slow and just, you know, very much like a labored pace. It's very just sludgy and down in the dirt. And then the riff doesn't necessarily change immediately, but the drum pattern will change underneath it. And then the riff slowly morphs to sort of fit this next section of the song, which could either be grindcore, could be fucking, you know, black metal again, could be like, you know, a more death metal section. Kind of dealer's choice with these guys. The song Parasite, which I believe was one of their lead-off singles, is probably one of the best examples of these shifts in general in terms of style. Opens up very doomy, then it kind of gets into more like black metal territory. Again, those cold tremolos, and the agonizing sludge metal-ish vocals or post-metal-ish vocals on there. You feel like you're being set up for like the most agonizing, fucking depressing song ever, and then it takes a hard shift to flat-out death metal. Like, it's just fucking brutal there for a second. But the vocals never really match up to like the flat-out brutality. Like, they still sound agonized no matter what. So in terms of the vocal dynamics in here, I like that they alternate. I think it adds a lot of like depth, and it's very emotional sounding. But when it comes down to the more brutal sections on here, like a song like Demon, which is the shortest track on here and probably the most grind-centric, aggressive song on there, the vocals don't necessarily change to get more aggressive. They're still heavy, but it's more of that like sort of sad heavy, and it's a weird contrast when it comes down to the song itself, because that song is probably the most focused on grindcore, I'd say, on the entire album. Grindcore is kind of like a seasoning on here. Honestly, I would say when it comes down to like the faster sections, it's more blackened death metal overall, because you do get a mix of black metal and death metal on here. But grindcore is kind of sparing. Like, there's definitely some on the opening track, Anthropogenic Annihilation. I just felt like saying that again. But Demon is probably the one I would say that is just almost a flat-out grindcore slash death grind song. Like, a little bit more reminiscent of bands like Wormrot, or I would say Caustic Wound. Maybe even like a little bit of like old school Terrorizer in there. Like, it's just a very aggressive, very riffy, chuggy track. And like, chuggy riffs aren't really like a big thing on here. Like, they're kind of, again, peppered in. A lot of this is kind of about atmosphere and dissonance. Like, there are good chunks of this album where it kind of feels like, you know, Mastodon's Remission, except you added black metal and fucking grindcore to it. And it kind of works. Like, it has an interesting sound overall, but some of the more doomy sections of that sludge metal sound, I don't think they hang out long enough. Often, I feel like they're kind of used to set up like the next section, which is generally going into blast beats and tremolo riffs and going for that more like droning atmosphere that's on here. There are solid like doomy breakdowns on here, like namely the title track and Killing Tree. Killing Tree has possibly like one of the best breakdowns in terms of like the end of it. Like, that breakdown sounds so depressive and defeated by life. Like, it just captures the whole mood. Like, I may not know the lyrics because I didn't look them up, but that one definitely feels like it's just pure bummer music. But for the most part, a lot of those sections don't seem to hang out long enough, and it likes to kind of build more on that kind of like dissonant, almost blackened atmosphere a lot. And I like that. That's really good. But I think the issue with combining this many styles, which they do pretty damn well in here, is that some get, you know, kind of pushed back in favor of others. And me being such a sucker for riffs, I think most of the riffier moments come from that more like death metal side. And me being like, you know, very riff centric, I like the big doomy riffs that come in, and I love all the fucking giant death metal riffs that come in, because they stand out. They kind of stand out from the droning atmosphere. They add a layer of aggression to it. I could just do with more of those, but I mean, honestly, overall, I thought this was pretty damn solid. It is a bit short though, like it's not even a half an hour, but it does feel very concise. I think the production is pretty solid on here. The vocals are a little bit in the back. They kind of sound like they're shouting from the back of the room. The guitars are drenched in fucking reverb. The bass is kind of indistinguishable, but it kind of all, you know, blends into a wall of sound. I think the drums do sound good. So it is mixed really well. I could have used like another like really long song on there, one that definitely explored, you know, as much as they did on Killing Tree, because I think that is honestly like probably the big standout on here for me. That and Demon, just for being like just such a fucking hyper aggressive track that really just stands out from the pack. But all in all, this was a pretty solid release. So overall, I'm gonna give this 3.5 stars. I enjoyed this. I mean, as bleak and fucking depressing as it was, I definitely enjoyed this. They do a pretty solid job of blending all these subgenres that can be vastly different from one another. The atmosphere in here is really good for what they're going for. It definitely has like a lot of depressive qualities, but I like those hard shifts to like brutal moments. The grind moments on there were really solid. And I think there's some really clever transitions in terms of switching gears to those genres too on here. Again, I do think they kind of laid on certain subgenres a little bit more in terms of the overall sound than they did others. And, you know, me being particular to like hearing all of them kind of come together, you know, I do think it kind of misses a little bit on that, but songs like Parasite, I think they did a fucking beautiful job on that in terms of just like transitioning from genre to genre and kind of blending it all together really well. In terms of like comparisons, like if you like this band, you will like this band. It's kind of hard to say. Like, I mean, it has like, again, Neurosis qualities in the vocals, but there's a lot of black metal in there. And again, it's very dissonant and cold, and there's also death metal in there too. Like there's definitely some Morbid Angel and Incantation stuff in there, but there's also like a sludge metal, and you know, I guess it's kind of comparable to Lord Dying in some of those moments too. They're kind of hard to peg, but honestly, I think that's part of the allure that makes them interesting to me. So I would just say, just go ahead and check this band out. I mean, if you like shit that comes out on Profound Lore Records, this definitely fits. So yeah, we'll just go with that. So, if you enjoyed this review, give it a thumbs up, and if you were new to the channel, subscribe, because we do stuff like this all the time. We are also on Patreon. If you'd like to help us out there, there's a link down below to thrallsmetal.com. Our Patreon link is there, as well as our store. We do need to restock, but eventually we will. It's just we've been busy with a whole bunch of other shit. But yeah, if you want to help us out there, the link is down below. And there's also a link down there to Denver Death Fest. This will be going on April 20th through April 22nd in Denver, Colorado, because that is where Denver Death Fest is. We will be making more announcements as to lineups. I believe there are either 2 or 3 more. I'm not entirely sure. But we do have a lot more bands to announce, and those will be coming up. And there are still tickets available. And if you are interested in said tickets, the link is down below. We are looking forward to actually hanging out with everybody down there, you know, shooting the shit, drinking some beers, talking about metal, watching metal. Sounds like a good time, right? I know I'm looking forward to it. I know the rest of you guys are looking forward to it. And I'm reasonably sure everyone that already bought tickets is probably looking forward to it. So yeah, if you are still interested in that, links down below. And of course, thank you all so much for liking, subscribing, following, all that shit. It is, again, amazing to do this and watch it grow. This has been such a wild journey. I know I said the same shit every time, but I have to thank you. It is fucking protocol here at Thralls, and I fucking mean it every time. You know, I get down to this part of the video, and there's this well of thankiness that just kind of wants to fucking pour out of me in awkward fashion because I don't know how to deliver it in any other way. But know that I mean it. It's amazing doing this. This is, again, such an incredible thing, and you're all fucking incredible for fucking signing up to watch us fucking knuckleheads hang out in my basement. This has become such a huge part of my life, and it's just, I don't know, it blows me away. So thank you for being a part of it, and we will catch you later.